right now, today, November 7th, 2025, here in Washington, D.C., something pretty significant is happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, inside the Supreme Court, the justices are in conference. They're looking at an emergency appeal.
An appeal that could potentially, really unwind the federal right to same-sex marriage. We're talking Obergefell v. Hodges.
It's aimed squarely at it. It's this major legal collision we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
Taking a deep dive,
Okay.
we're looking at, religious freedom, First Amendment stuff, crashing right into civil rights that have been established for, what, a decade now?
A full decade. And it all circles back, really, to one person, a county clerk from Kentucky, Kim Davis.
Mm-hmm. Her actions from 10 years ago are, well, they're literally echoing in those marble holes today.
It's incredible. Okay, let's trace this back. Where did this whole thing start? Summer 2015, Rowan County, Kentucky.
That's it. The Obergefell decision had just landed.
Yeah.
Made same-sex marriage legal nationwide.
Law of the land.
Instantly. But Kim Davis, she was the county clerk there, and she said absolutely not, cited her apostolic Christian faith.
So she just refused, flat out.
Flat out refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Said it would violate her conscience, make her complicit in sin, was the argument.
Wow. And that must have exploded immediately, national news, right?
Oh, absolutely. Her office became ground zero in the culture war overnight. You had her personal beliefs clashing directly with her duties as a public official.
And the legal system had to step in pretty fast, I imagine.
Instantly. The couple she turned away, they sued. And a federal judge issued a very clear order: go back to work, issue the licenses, do your job.
But she didn't.
She refused that direct order.
Okay.
And that's key. That's when she was charged with contempt of court.
Okay, so important distinction. It wasn't jail for her beliefs. It was jail for defying a court order related to her job.
Precisely. And it was historic.
Yeah.
September 2015, she spends 5 days in a Kentucky jail. The first public official jailed like this after the Obergefell ruling.
5 days. And how did she get out? What was the fix?
Well, it was kind of a strange temporary solution. Her deputies were allowed to start issuing licenses again, but they actually had to physically remove her name from the form.
Scrubbed it off.
Yeah, just to sort of, de-escalate things for the moment. But obviously that wasn't sustainable.
No. Sounds like a Band-Aid.
Exactly. So the Kentucky legislature stepped in. They passed a statewide bill.
What did it do?
It removed all county clerks' names from marriage certificates across Kentucky. A direct response to this.
So basically taking that specific conflict point off the table for any future clerks with religious objections?
That was the idea. Prevent this exact scenario from happening again.
Okay. And what happened to Kim Davis, politically speaking?
Well, she definitely used the situation to rally support, became a figurehead for some, but ultimately she lost her re-election bid in 2018.
To someone who promised to just follow the law.
Yep. The challenger basically ran on, I'll issue the licenses, no questions asked.
Yeah.
So her political career ended there.
But the legal fight, clearly that wasn't over.
Not even close.
Yeah.
That initial defiance back in 2015, it kicked off this long, drawn-out civil rights lawsuit. And that's what's bringing us right up to today, to this Supreme Court conference.
So this current fight, it's about money now. A financial penalty?
It is. A federal appeals court in Cincinnati ruled against her, held her personally liable for damages.
Personally liable. Okay, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, the court ordered her to pay $100,000 in damages directly to the main couple she refused, David Ermold and David Moore.
For the emotional distress, the rights violation.
Exactly. And then on top of that, another $260,000 or so to cover their legal fees.
So that's, what, $360,000?
$360,000.
Yeah.
This is significant personal cost for actions she took while in office.
And the court is basically saying you can't use your office to deny rights and expect taxpayers or the state to shield you from the consequences. Personal liability is real here.
That seems to be the message, yes. If you take an oath to uphold the law and you deliberately break it, causing harm, you can be held responsible.
Okay, but here's the kicker, right? Her legal team isn't just fighting the bill. They're not just saying she shouldn't have to pay.
No, that's what makes this so audacious. They're using this appeal, this fight over the $360,000 as a vehicle.
A vehicle to do what?
To ask the Supreme Court to wipe Obergefell v. Hodges off the books entirely, to overturn the whole thing.
Wow. Okay. What's the legal argument for such a massive ask tied to this specific damages case?
They're going straight to the First Amendment, the Free Exercise Clause.
Religious freedom.
Right. The core argument is that her religious freedom should have protected her actions back in 2015. that she shouldn't have been punished, shouldn't have been forced to comply, and they're fine.
Therefore, the ruling that forced her compliance, Obergefell itself, must be wrong, unconstitutional.
That's the logic they're presenting, that her personal faith, protected by the First Amendment, should essentially override the established civil rights of the public she was elected to serve.
That is a really explosive argument. Now, lots of experts think the court taking this up is, maybe a long shot.
It is generally seen that way.
But the fact they're even discussing it today in conference, you have to talk about the Dobbs decision from 2022, don't you?
You absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Overturning Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs case, that fundamentally changed the landscape. It signaled this court's willingness to reconsider long-standing, deeply embedded precedents.
And that emboldened people challenging other rulings.
Definitely. It opened the door, psychologically and legally, for challenges to rulings like Obergefell. Davis's team sees an opportunity created by Dobbs.
Okay, so let's look at the justices themselves. Where might they stand? Justice Thomas seems like the most likely supporter of revisiting Obergefell.
He's been the most vocal, yeah. He dissented strongly back in 2015, talked about states' rights, religious liberty concerns. He's repeatedly called for Obergefell to be looked at again. So, yes, he's probably receptive.
What about Chief Justice Roberts? He also dissented in 2015, wrote about it being a serious intrusion on the states.
He did. But Roberts has been noticeably quiet on this specific issue since Dobbs. He seems very focused on the court's institutional legitimacy right now.
So even though he disagreed with Obergefell, overturning it now might be seen as too disruptive for the court's reputation.
That could be his calculation. Another massive societal upheaval right after Dobbs.
Yeah.
He might be wary. He's definitely a key figure to watch.
And Justice Alito, also a dissenter back then.
Yes, but Alito has also, maybe surprisingly, tried to lower the temperature a bit recently. He said publicly he's not on some crusade to erase Obergefell.
Interesting. So maybe even some of the original dissenters recognize the difficulty of undoing it now.
It suggests they understand the practical reality and the potential fallout, which leads us to Justice Barrett.
Right. She wasn't there in 2015, but she's talked about this idea of reliance interest. Explain that.
Reliance interest is crucial here. It's a legal concept asking. How many people have built their lives, their families, their finances, based on the assumption that a court ruling is settled law? And Barrett has pointed out, look, unlike abortion before Dobbs, where state laws were all over the place, Obergefell created immediate nationwide uniformity and stability for same-sex marriage.
So millions of couples suddenly had access to things like joint tax filing, inheritance rights, adoption, shared property, things they built their lives around.
Precisely. They relied on that ruling. Barrett suggested that overturning it now would be like, well, her phrase was like pulling the rug out from under all those people, those families.
Kids, homes, finances, all structured around this decade-old ruling.
Exactly. And that massive reliance interest is perhaps the biggest legal hurdle for the Davis appeal. It forces the justices to weigh the theoretical desire to correct what some see as a past error against the very real, very disruptive, very widespread harm that overturning it now would cause.
So connecting this out, this isn't just about Kim Davis paying a fine anymore.
Not at all. The decision on whether to even hear this case fully is about defining the limits of religious freedom when it bumps up against federal civil rights.
It's about that line. Where does personal faith stop and public duty start for an elected official?
It forces that fundamental question onto the national stage again.
And it's not just abstract legal theory. People are feeling this intensely. There were demonstrations just a couple of days ago, right? November 5th?
Yeah, right there on the Supreme Court steps. Protesters gathered. It was a very visual, very human reminder of what's actually at stake here.
I saw some pictures, people holding signs, chanting, but also holding photos from their own weddings.
Making it personal.
Saying, look, this isn't some historical debate. This is our life, our family, our today.
It really highlights how deeply Obergefell has woven itself into the fabric of society in just 10 years.
It's incredible how quickly it became almost invisible infrastructure. It affects tax filings, parental rights through adoption, hospital visitation, inheritance. So many mundane, crucial parts of life.
So challenging it now isn't just challenging a ruling. It's challenging the stability and the very recognition of millions of American families. Families who have just been living their lives according to the law of land for a decade. That reliance interest is immense.
Okay, so bringing it back to right now, the conference is happening today, November 7th. What happens next? What should we be looking for?
Well, the justices are discussing whether to grant certiorari, basically, deciding if they'll take the full case. We could hear whether they've accepted or rejected the appeal as early as Monday.
So a decision on whether to decide could come very soon.
Exactly. And if they do take the case, then we're looking at full briefings, oral arguments likely next year, and a major ruling probably by June 2026.
Wow. And if they don't take the case?
If they deny cert, then the lower court ruling stands. Kim Davis owes the $360,000, and Obergefell remains untouched for now.
So a really pivotal moment.
Absolutely. It comes down to this fundamental tension. You have a building with equal justice under law carved into it. And the question facing the justices is, can religious objections raised by a public official effectively nullify established civil rights for others?
How they answer that, it really will shape what equality means for a whole new generation.
No question about it.
Okay, so as we wait for that news, maybe as early as Monday, here's something to chew on. If a law, like Obergefell, becomes so deeply integrated into society, underpinning the stability of millions of lives and families, at what point does the perceived need to correct that ruling become outweighed by the sheer cost, the human cost, of overturning it?
That's the immense weight they have to balance, the principle versus the impact.
Definitely something to think about as we watch for the court's next move.